Tonight on Closing Arguments, the final week of the trial of Johnny Depp versus ex-wife Amber Heard is underway in Fairfax County, Virginia. And today, Amber Heard's legal team calls expert witnesses to strengthen her case, alleging that she is a victim of domestic violence at the hands of Johnny Depp.
And Dr. Moore, in your decades of practice, have you ever seen an injury associated with a glass explosion that was focused on the end of a single finger in the way Mr. Depp describes?
Well, not consistent with the clinical images and the findings in this case, no.
Polysubstance abuse is the use of 3 or more substances. And I answer, like I said, concurrently, he was, even while I was getting ready for rehab.
And we'll take a look at the list of possible witnesses to be called for Johnny Depp's rebuttal case. Will the jury be hearing from Kate Moss?
I don't hesitate, I don't wait, I just in my head instantly think of Kate Moss and the stairs, and I swung at him.
In Austin, Texas, a search is underway for the suspect involved in the murder of a pro cyclist. The arrest warrant is pointing to a possible love triangle. We have the latest. Plus, Dr. Richard Moore testified Johnny Depp could not have injured his finger the way he says he did. So tonight, we ask you, the 13th juror, what do you think happened? Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of Closing Arguments starts right now.
It is great to see you this Monday night here on Closing Arguments. I'm Julie Grant, in tonight for Vinnie Politan. Amber Heard's case in chief is winding down in the trial of dueling defamation cases in Virginia. Today, Heard's legal team called several expert witnesses to the stand to bolster her case that she was in fact a victim of abuse at the hands of Johnny Depp, and not the way around as Johnny Depp is claiming. That is, of course, their position. The Depp team previously, and we know Johnny Depp previously testified that Amber Heard's the one who threw a bottle of vodka at him during a trip to Australia. When the bottle shattered, Depp testified that he lost part of his finger. Well, this morning, the Heard team called an orthopedic surgeon to testify that, in his opinion, Depp could not have sustained the injury in that way he described to the jury. Let's take a listen to some of the testimony from Dr. Moore.
Dr. Moore, I believe you mentioned just a few minutes ago that there were other pictures that showed more of the nail. Is this one of those pictures?
Yes.
And explain to the jury again, and I'm sorry for the graphic nature of this photo, but it's important that the jury understands the basis for opinion that a bottle couldn't have caused this coming in from above.
Yeah, so it's again, the mechanism described would have almost certainly led to severe nail injury. You know, I see no subungual hematoma. Again, it's a palmar tissue loss, and the loss is from distal to proximal, which is from the tip back far below the nail. And so for it to create that tissue loss down there, there would almost certainly have to be injury dorsally with that described mechanism.
So what you're saying is that something coming from the top could not have left a nail intact and yet caused injury from the tip of the finger underneath the nail.
Objection leading. Overruled.
You can answer.
So I believe that with the mechanism described, that if the bottle struck the nail, there would have certainly been an injury to the nail bed, and in order for the soft tissue injury to be created by that mechanism, there would have almost certainly been tissue loss on the top of the finger as well.
And based on the pictures that you reviewed of Mr. Depp's finger injury, you cannot determine what particular object caused the injury to his finger. Yes?
Well, I can't determine exactly what object did it. I think that I can say with confidence that the described mechanism of the bottle hitting and shattering the finger was not consistent with the appearance of the injury.
I understand that.
And
My
I think
question is just very specific. You can't determine the object that caused the injury to Mr. Depp's finger.
Well, it's a little bit more of a non-specific answer. I mean, again, I can't determine the exact object, but I can determine that it's unlikely that it was sustained in the manner described.
You can't definitively say what caused the injury to Mr. Depp's fingers. Yes or no?
No.
All right, let me bring in my think tank for some discussion now. Joining us from Stamford, Connecticut, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crosland, and in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Great to have you both on the show tonight. Thank you for being with me. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this finger injury, starting with the direct examination. And Darnell, I'd like to go to you on this one. Did the Depp team do the job that was needed to be done today, making the jury convinced that there's no way that injury happened from the vodka bottle, as Johnny Depp said?
Well, actually, the way the evidence rolled out was whether the mechanism as to what caused the injury could have been said with an absolute certainty. And Dr. Moore was trying to explain that based on what he's seen, a bottle could not have caused that type of injury because it would have had to struck the nail, and then you would have had damage to the nail and then roll over to the soft tissue. And counsel for Depp, she did her best to try to pin him down to saying, no, I cannot say with absolute certainty what caused it, but I just think it just didn't come in that well. I think the jury's probably going to disregard this whole charade that took place today, because I don't think with scientific certainty, either side added anything to what the jury has to consider.
Okay, so on direct exam, was there something in particular lacking in your view, Darnell? Was there something they didn't do to get the point across?
I think the idea here is that if you look at what the testimony has been so far over these last couple of weeks, is that Johnny Depp's finger was damaged by a certain object that Amber threw at him. And that was the only thing that they was trying to say on direct examination, to say, well, that could not have happened this way. And so the doctor gave some testimony as to what he thinks an injury should look like if it was struck with a bottle, and the way in the way Depp's team has said. And I just think that when the cross-examination came, it sort of tried to cancel out, well, you can't say what hit his finger, can you? No, I cannot. And so I just think it just didn't come across crystal to me.
Okay, let's take a look at the forensic psychiatrist who then testified. He took the stand, talked about Johnny Depp's substance abuse problems, also talked about intimate partner violence. That's an area of expertise for him. His name's Dr. David Siegel. He testified that Johnny Depp exhibits behavior that is consistent with that of someone who is a perpetrator of intimate partner violence. Take a look.
In my opinion, based on my review of the evidence, based on my clinical experience, based on my publishing experience, based on my teaching experience, that Mr. Depp has behaviors that are consistent with both someone who has a substance use disorder as well as consistent behaviors for someone who is a perpetrator of intimate partner violence.
All right, I want to bring in attorney Jennifer Brandt on this one. She practices family law in Philadelphia. So Jennifer, tell me, when you're listening to this expert's testimony, and he's talking about, the context of their relationship, what went on, all of the evidence he was able to review. Tell me what you thought in terms of the narrative conveyed to the jury. Was he effective? And essentially what he wanted to convey was that Johnny Depp is someone who has behavior that is consistent with someone who commits intimate partner violence.
Julie, I think he started out effective and he was pretty good on direct. I mean, he seems credible, he seems believable, he seems experienced for sure. But when it got to cross-examination, which we didn't see yet, he just fell apart. He became very argumentative. He was just sort of obnoxious. I think that's the best way to sum it up. And I think it really worked against him. I just think going out of this and going away from this witness, people are just thinking, boy, this guy, he was really difficult. And that's what they're going to remember, I think, more than what he really had to say in his direct exam and all the things he was saying about intimate partner violence and Johnny's substance abuse issues, et cetera, I think people are just going to say, boy, that guy was difficult.
Yeah, and we have a couple clips of that. I'm glad you brought up the cross because we want to show that. You know, he also gave some testimony about how survivors of domestic violence can certainly suffer from mental health problems following the abuse. And that's why counseling is always, you know, recommended to get through that period after leaving a violent relationship. And so we want to take a look at some of that.
He didn't examine Johnny either, you know, so I think that was a downfall. So, you know, I think he's talking about records that he reviewed, and it's always more difficult if you don't have that direct examination of the witness. I think it's hard to, you know, build on his credibility when he hasn't even met Johnny and hasn't really talked to Johnny.
Right.
So I think that also harmed his testimony.
Right, and important to point out too, that was through no fault of his own, not for a lack of wanting to do it. It was because the court would not order it. And without a court order, Johnny Depp can say, you know, go fly a kite. I'm not allowing you to evaluate me. And so, you know, who knows how it went down, but maybe something like that. Let's play those clips. We want to take a look at two different clips, and we're going to see some of the cross-examination in the second one.
Do survivors of intimate partner violence experience mental health issues?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So survivors of intimate partner violence, and by the way, I should start out by saying, we don't expect, in psychiatry, we don't expect our victims to be perfect. We don't expect our victims to be unscathed by what they've received. So starting with that, okay, it is not unusual as survivors to see substance use, substance abuse, substance-induced symptoms, chronic depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, or subsyndromal post-traumatic stress disorder along the lines of battered Wise syndrome, and some emotional unpredictability. And again, you are a victim here.
Psychiatrists are ethically prohibited from evaluating individuals without permission or other authorization, such as a court order. That's the rule, right?
Again, if you're reading that, then I have to believe you're not misrepresenting it. And I would come back to, again, then this whole thing on we might as well get rid of all the expert witnesses we've had throughout all of time for court proceedings. Because what you're saying is unless a court orders it, and that's what you just said, or the APA said, then therefore expert witnesses cannot do an evaluation based on an observation of the medical records. Insurance companies cannot do evaluations solely based on medical records where their doctors rendering professional opinions. So at the end of the day, you are essentially saying that unless someone has directly evaluated it, this whole medical system we have, this whole legal system we have is null and void.
Okay, so got to see a little bit of the cross-examination there. I mean, boy, oh boy, did that testimony get the attention of the jury. I want to know what you think about that. Darnell, let me go to you first. How did you think he held up on the cross?
I agree with Attorney Brandt. You don't want to be arguing with the attorneys. You leave that to both attorneys, if you would. If you understand, you want to come across as just credible. You want to stay with the text that you're an expert in and leave the arguments for the attorneys. He came across a bit argumentative. And one thing I did pick up on, and I made a note of that, they started to talk automatically about survivors having mental health issues. And it's too early in the game, or probably too late in the game, depending on how you look at it, for Amber's team to now be showing mitigation, saying that she has mental health issues and this is why she might have been drinking. This is why she behaved that way. I think that that's going down a slippery slope. So I think that didn't come across too good for him, and I just think he was a bit argumentative.
Why do you say it's too late in the game, Darnell? I'm curious.
Because if the idea here is that you should own your behavior, you shouldn't start saying that the way Amber behaved, drinking or using drugs or being violent, was because she's a survivor of violence. So therefore she has some mental health issues. And they just sprinkled it in. They didn't really even go into it and explain to the jury what that means. They just said, could survivors of this type of intimate partner violence exhibit mental health issues, and they left it alone. And to me, that sounds like they're trying to say there was some mitigation here for her behavior.
That's an interesting interpretation of it, because the way I was viewing it, I thought he was referencing the PTSD, which they did present early on in this case. And just a reminder, they're still in her case in chief, but that's what I thought that was a reference to when he was talking about that. Jennifer Brandt, give me your thoughts on this. Is there anything better counsel could have done with him, in your view, on the cross-examination?
I think cross-examination, I didn't think the counsel had to do much, because he started arguing right away, which was a problem for him. I think, it seems like he's definitely testified before. He seems very experienced, but somebody should have probably coached him a little bit better to handle the cross-examination and not argue with the attorney, because, as I said, that was a huge distraction. The jury apparently, looked at that. They were, sort of looking at him with skepticism after he was testifying. And I just think it really hurt. It hurt his testimony. It hurt the case, and it kind of, you lost the message with him, because once he starts arguing and just his attitude, I know he was trying to prove a point, and I think he was a bit insulted by being, sort of challenged, but he's a witness and he should be ready for this, and he should have just held his cool and handled this a little bit better. I think it would have been a lot more effective. So I think counsel did a great job in cross-examination, because they got him ruffled. They must have known what buttons to push, and they got him going a bit.
All right, thank you both for your opinions, and we want your opinions at home. Tweet us at Court TV. Let us know what you think of that cross-examination of that expert witness. He certainly livened it up today in the courtroom, that's for sure. And some of the jurors were entertained by it. Some of them were smiling and kind of laughing at points. So let us know what you think at home. We're going to take a quick break. The think tank is going to stay with me for the whole hour tonight. We'll be right back with a look at some possible witnesses in Johnny Depp's rebuttal case. That's next.
But I'm standing up there talking, I'm at the top of the stairs with my back to the stairs. And that's when Johnny runs up the stairs. And again, I'm facing Amber. He comes up behind me, strikes me in the back, kind of just somewhere over here. He strikes me in the back. I hear Amber shout, "Don't hit my sister." She smacks him, lands one. And then he grabs, at that point, that's when Travis runs up the stairs after Amber landed one. But by that time, Johnny had already grabbed Amber by the hair with one hand and was whacking her repeatedly in the face with the other as I was standing there.
That was Whitney Henriquez, Amber Heard's sister, testifying about a physical fight she claimed she witnessed between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, a fight that happened at their Los Angeles penthouse. Whitney, we know, was called by Amber Heard's legal team during Heard's case in chief, and we're learning today from a source who's close to the Depp team that some of the witnesses expected to be called in his rebuttal case could provide some further testimony about the alleged staircase incident. So take a look at this. This is the list of possible rebuttal witnesses, including Johnny Depp himself, Jennifer Howell, that friend of Whitney Henriquez, and Johnny Depp's former girlfriend, supermodel Kate Moss. Now, if you remember, during Amber Heard's testimony, she said she recalled thinking about Kate Moss when she thought Depp might push her sister down the stairs. Here's a look back at what she said, and pay close attention, to Depp's legal team's reaction.
I don't hesitate, I don't wait, I just, in my head, instantly think of Kate Moss and the stairs, and I swung at him. In all of my relationship to date with Johnny, I hadn't landed a blow.
Okay there. So we were sort of trying to kind of read the tea leaves there with that reaction. And we figured they must have some evidence that they want to present, right? Something to refute that. And here we understand that could be in the form of testimony from Kate Moss, perhaps, herself. That also could be in the form of some testimony from this friend of Whitney Henriquez's, Jennifer Howell. Although that testimony may be harder to get in because we understand she wrote a letter and there would be a big hearsay problem with that. Let me bring in my guests now. In the think tank we have tonight, criminal defense attorney Darnell Crosland and family law attorney Jennifer Brandt. Great to see you both. Okay, so when we think about who might be able to shed some light on the staircase incident, Kate Moss, supermodel, big name. Darnell, tell me, what do you think about that? What kind of effect her testimony might have with the jury if she says something like, yeah, it never happened to me?
Yeah, well, the whole idea with rebuttal is that I think you shouldn't use it unless you specifically are going after something that's monumental. Just because you can rebut doesn't mean you should rebut everything. And watching this trial unravel, I was wondering whether they should even use their rebuttal time. And when Amber mentioned Kate Moss, she didn't specifically say in a whole comprehensive sentence what was important about Kate Moss. She said something Kate Moss. It was almost disjunctive. And then the lawyer just gave the O.J. Simpson fist pump that Johnny Cochran did for the not guilty verdict. And then I was wondering, okay, maybe he's up to something, but he didn't follow through with that. So we have to wait and see. If what he's going to prove is that Kate Moss was never there or Amber is just floating this name out there and it has no point, then I think the jury is going to be affected in a positive way for Johnny if they could show that she lacks credibility, because this whole thing is about credibility. So I'm waiting to see myself.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. Are you saying you wouldn't call Kate Moss to rebut that? Do you not think it's significant enough to call her as a witness?
No, I'm saying that if in fact the plaintiff, which is Johnny Depp's team, if in fact the plaintiffs are saying specifically Kate Moss is going to debunk something, then call her. If it's just going to call her without a specific item that they're trying to debunk, then I wouldn't call her. So they have to make sure that they're not just calling people and wasting time.
Oh, yeah, they would be asking her about whether or not he pushed her down the stairs. So
yeah, well, that's the thing.
In that case, then it'd be a yes, right?
It would be a yes, but when Amber was testifying, she didn't say, Kate Moss witnessed this happen and Kate Moss this, and I said, hey, Kate Moss grabbed me, or she didn't flush it out. She just said Kate Moss, sort of disjunctively, and they said yes.
Right.
And so I'm like,
they
okay,
knew it was
what are
the
they talking
reference.
about?
Right, something that's being discussed in the court of public opinion and has been, long before this litigation was brewing. Okay, let's take a look at some of these possible other rebuttal witnesses. And then, Jennifer, I want to talk to you about this one. So we understand there are 16 names on the Depp list. Here are a few other ones that stood out to us. Candi Davidson-Goldbronn, a representative for the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Walter Hamada, the president of a DC-based film productions. Warner Brothers, and Dr. David Kalber, Depp's hand doctor. Okay, let's stop right there. The hand doctor. Jennifer Brandt, what do you think after what we saw today with the Depp expert witness, the orthopedic surgeon who testified this morning? There's no way that vodka bottle caused the injury. What do you think? Should they call this doctor to refute that?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't hurt to do that, because I think it would bring in another opinion. Obviously, the doctor is going to come in and say, absolutely, the vodka bottle could have caused this injury, and he'll talk about his experience and why he believes that it was the vodka bottle. I mean, honestly, I think this whole point about how Johnny's finger was severed is a confusing point for everybody, because we all sit here wondering how, if you throw a vodka bottle, how that can sever somebody's finger. But, you had the doctor today say that, he didn't believe it was the vodka bottle, but he didn't know what it was. Now you'll have Johnny Depp's doctor come in and say, you know what, I think it was the vodka bottle, or it could possibly be the vodka bottle. So I think that puts sort of that issue to rest. And, I agree with Darnell in terms of rebuttal. I don't think they should prolong the rebuttal case, but I think the Kate Moss issue is a big one, because, she did say, or in the past there had been discussion of whether Johnny had pushed her down the stairs, and I see with the fist pumping and the excitement by Johnny Depp's lawyers, I assume Kate Moss will come in and say, you know what, that didn't ever happen. he never pushed me. He was a great boyfriend. You know, we had a good relationship or something to that effect. She's going to turn things around, and I think that'll be very powerful, especially on rebuttal, because it'll be Johnny's, last word on this, and I think it would end on a good note if they brought her in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do
Julie,
too. I think that would be very strong for them. We have a couple more names. I'm sorry?
I just want to add one thing. Candace Davidson is going to be a very strong rebuttal witness because there was a lot to talk about whether there was a pledge or a donation of this divorce settlement of $7 million. So Amber played games with that. But if Miss Davidson from the Children's Hospital comes in and says, we never got any money of any kind from Amber Heard from a divorce settlement or any other kind of monies, that's going to go directly towards her credibility. And I think that Miss Davidson would be a great rebuttal witness to put that to bed.
All right, let's look at the other ones we have here. I want to get through this list before we have to take a break. All right, so we have Dr. Kimberly Collins, forensic pathologist, is also on the list. We have Morgan Knight, witness of the Hicksville incident. We have Lydia Phillip, flight attendant. Oh, that flight where he allegedly kicked her in the back. That was a very bad incident, so perhaps she may testify to that. These were the other names that stood out to us. And again, something with a witness list, you both know, you both do trial work. They could call none of them. You know, it's just in an abundance of caution. You get your subpoenas out, you have your list ready. And of course, Johnny Depp. I mean, we know he's on this list. So we know he might be recalled by his team to refute one thing or multiple things. There was a lot of buzz today. Before we have to hit a break, I wanted to ask you both about something. You know, there was a lot of buzz. There was some word that some of our Court TV team got that Johnny Depp was going to be called by Amber Heard's team. I have said, you know, publicly before when I've been interviewed about this, that would be a terrible idea for them to call him. I was, you know, pretty shocked that that was what was being floated out there by some sources very close to the Heard team. And so there was a lot of buzz about this today, and we saw today he was not, in fact, called. Can either of you, I want to ask you both this question. Darnell, I'll go to you first on this. Do you see any utility whatsoever in the Heard team calling him before they rest?
Julie, I agree with you 100%. The last thing you want is the voice of the opposition. That he's not going to help them. He's not going to clean anything up for them. They're not going to make him look bad. They couldn't do it in the first time. They're not going to do it now. Just leave him to rest.
Mm-hmm. Right. Jennifer, do you agree as well?
I agree 100%. I think it would be a huge mistake to call him. I was surprised that they were even talking about it. Nothing he's going to say is going to help them. It'll only hurt them, and just let it be. I mean, if he comes in on rebuttal, there's nothing they can do about that, but you certainly don't want to call him in their case in chief.
Right, right, to give him that opportunity. That would not be good. All right. Darnell, Crosland, Jennifer, Brandt, thank you both so much. We're going to squeeze in a break. When we come back, our think tank returns, and we're going to be bringing you another big story that we're following here at Court TV, a nationwide manhunt for Caitlin Armstrong, who's accused of killing a professional cyclist who was allegedly having a relationship with her boyfriend at one time. Joy Lim Nakrin will be here to break down all the details for us when Closing Arguments continues.
We are at the absolute dawn of this, of seeing where this goes.
Introducing a new point of view. Yours. Newsy. Watch free 24/7.
Dr. Moore, based on your analysis, did Mr. Depp's finger injury happen as a result of a vodka bottle being thrown at him?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
I'm sorry.
No.
And what is the basis for that opinion?
Well, the medical data is inconclusive. It's not consistent with what we see in the described injury pattern or in the clinical photographs. And there are several elements. There's you know, the description was of the hand being flat on a bar and the bottle crushing the finger from the top. But looking at the images, there's really no significant injury to the dorsum of the finger, and to create the type of injury with that type of a crush injury, we would anticipate both injury to the fingernail and other parts of the finger.
Thanks for staying with us here on Closing Arguments. I'm Julie Grant in tonight for Vinnie Politan. So what we just saw, there was a big moment in court today when Surgeon Richard Moore told the jury that the medical data does not support Johnny Depp's explanation of how his finger was severed. You'll recall Depp claims the injury occurred when Amber Heard threw a vodka bottle at him, which broke on his hand, taking off the tip of his finger. So in light of this expert testimony, we asked you, our wonderful 13th jurors, did the surgeon's testimony change your mind about what happened to Depp's finger? We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day from Molly, who writes, this orthopedic surgeon never saw Johnny Depp's hand or finger. He was never at the location where it happened. He never saw Johnny Depp as a patient. He did not perform surgery on Johnny Depp. He was not at the hospital where his finger was reattached. Why would I listen to his testimony? He already perjured himself by changing details from his previous deposition. Molly, I love like the most of that there that you wrote there. That could be like a cross-examination. That's really, really great. I'm not talking about the perjury part. I'm staying away from that part. But thank you so much for all of that. We want to also bring in a comment from Anne-Marie tonight. Anne-Marie stated tonight, quote, unfortunately, I have to assume he cut his finger out of desperation with this insane woman. He was probably drunk. Okay, Anne-Marie, thank you so much. We've heard a couple of comments. Let's go around the horn to the think tank. And we have with us, we had some audio problems. So sorry, Al Wunsch. We couldn't connect with you earlier. You were scheduled to be on the show from the top of the hour. And now we have you. So I want to go to you first. You've heard a couple of these comments, the comment of the day from Molly, the one from Anne-Marie. Your thoughts, please.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Darnell for having me thrown into a trunk and all these Conneticut license plates around. I finally got out, and I was able to get, and I'm actually in an undisclosed location, different than the one I'm usually at because I'm a little frightened. But nonetheless, you know what? Look, there's no way that finger was severed the way Johnny Depp said it. I don't care what doctor's up there. It's a scientific impossibility. It is a physical impossibility. It was done by him slamming his hand down on that glass, breaking that glass, and severing the finger. It's the only way it could have possibly happened. It didn't happen being a bottle being thrown at it or anything along those lines. It doesn't make any sense. It's a very, very Johnny, because that makes him look better. But the doctors are nailed it right on. It's a snowball's chance in hell that it happened the way Johnny Depp said.
Al, thank you for that. I want to get comments from Darnell and Jennifer as well. I wanted to go to you first there because I felt bad you didn't get much talk time with us tonight because of the technical problems. Let's take a look at another viewer comment from one of our 13th jurors. This next one comes from Zagnut on Twitter, who writes, quote, Johnny never said his hand was flat on the bar. He described himself leaning back, hand draped over the edge of the bar. The fact he didn't get that right after reviewing the testimony throws out his testimony in my mind. Grasping at straws much, another waste of time. All right there, Jennifer Brandt, tell me what you think of this comment from Zagnut.
Well, I think that Al actually had the best expert testimony. I don't think we need to go any further.
Yeah, you did.
I agree. I mean, we don't know for sure. Nobody knows. Nobody knows except Johnny and Amber, who were there, what really happened. And if his hand moved or it was, held steady, we don't know. The doctor doesn't know. That's why I think this is a lot about nothing. And like we said before, Johnny will have his own expert come in and say something completely different. So is this going to make or break the case? I don't think so. I don't really think it's going to matter. I think there's so many other issues that have come up in this case. I think this is a minor point at best.
Gotcha. All right, let's look at another comment. This one comes from Liv tonight saying, quote, love hashtag Johnny Depp's reaction. He knows how the tip of his finger was cut off, and this loon isn't going to tell him or the world it did not happen that way. Oh, okay. All right, Liv, tell us how you really feel. Darnell, CROSLAND, tell me what you think of Liv's comment there.
It's clear that Liz is probably the one that was in the audience with the carriage and the baby, Johnny's baby. It's a love affair that we don't want to get in the middle of. But in terms of anything worth noting, all I can note from that comment is that she totally loves Johnny Depp, but she has nothing to the scientific issue of whether, in fact, that bottle cut his finger off. So I wish them luck in their love affair.
Right. Appreciate it, Darnell. All right, let's see if we get another one. The next comment comes from Jay Kaplan on Twitter, who says, no, it does not change anything. Number one, he did not see Johnny Depp's finger. Number two, he does not know what caused it. He just says it's inconsistent with what Johnny Depp is saying, and he cannot rule out that it was a vodka bottle. Okay, Al Wunsch, let me go to you on this one, because all the time in trials, all the time, experts do not have personal knowledge. If they were all there to witness everything, what a great trial world it would be, right? But that was something that was really heavily focused on by the Depp team in front of this jury. I want to get your take on that as well as this comment, please.
Well, these are experts. These are not treating doctors, okay? And what they're going to do is going to take a look at photographs. They're going to read reports. They're going to take a look at surgical records. And then they're going to put together an opinion. In fact, they're the only people that are allowed to testify as an opinion. And that's what they're doing. They're experts. And they're there for the purposes of trying to help the jury understand the dynamics of an injury. And that's what this doctor did. I mean, let's face it, Johnny was bombed, okay? And so, how much of what he's saying is realistic and how much is, 80 proof, which is the booze he was drinking and the drugs he was on, okay? That's the whole scenario here. These experts come in, they're paid by both sides, they dance with the side who brought them, but they are allowed to give an opinion, despite the fact that they are not at the scene when the accident occurs or when the injury occurs.
Right. I appreciate that, Al. I think that was one point that I think can get lost on a lot of viewers, and through nobody's fault. If you're not familiar with trial advocacy and how the rules work, it can be like, well, geez, he didn't see it, so why are we listening to him? No, we should, because he's an expert. So they're all offering experts, and the jury will decide what weight to give all that testimony. Big thank you to all three of you on my think tank tonight. Al Wunsch, Darnell Crosland, Jennifer Brandt. I appreciate you all weighing in. I appreciate all the insight you shared. Thank you so much for coming on the program tonight.